So I'm going to start out with a little bit of kitsch. Well, let's drop the little. We're going to start with a lot of kitsch. We've got some homemade, crocheted, vintage Halloween goodness. It is a Witch Renews It cover. Who remembers these?
Well, if you got a dollar, well, just lousy down. Know that I got rhythm that could suit your budget fine.
Hi, this is Patrick, Trusty Mercantile. Welcome to my channel. Recently, I was on a business trip for my day job. If you don't know, Trusty Mercantile is a vintage reseller, and that is my side hustle. So I was traveling into Iowa for my day job, and at the suggestion of one of the people I follow on Instagram, Iowa City Arts and Antiques, I actually was looking to see what they had available because they're a fantastic Instagram channel that I love to follow. They were not going to be in the area while I was there, but they suggested I visit Amana Colonies, where they had a booth in one of the antique stores there. So I did a little side trip on my side hustle to Amana Colonies, Iowa, and did a little bit of filming and picked up some items. And what I realized as I went to edit the video, I never did an actual introduction of the community of Amana, which was actually a neat little area. There's a nice walking downtown. It just happened that the stores that I went to were a little bit off the main beat. There's kind of like the historic downtown, and then about a block or two away from that is where there's this little cluster of antique shops. I went to 4 different shops, did not purchase at every single one of them, and actually did not film in every one of them, so I do apologize, but all of them were worthy of visiting, and I hope you enjoy some of the video clips that I've got coming up, and then stay tuned, because at the end of the clips I will actually do a little mini haul video showing some of the items that I picked up both for myself and for resale. Enjoy the clips. It's not all that often you get to follow somebody on Instagram and then have the opportunity of visiting their shop, or in this case, booth. But this is what I got to do for Iowa City Arts and Antiques. And I followed them on Instagram because they always have a great collection of primitives, including some great decorated stoneware. And happened to land in their booth while they were having a sale. Well, everyone was having a sale. And they've just got some great variety. Not picking up any of the stoneware, but I found a trencher that I'm going to replace my reproduction one with, and a little Victorian wall mirror that I think will be a great addition to a little area that I'm doing in my living room. But showcase what they've got, some variety, some large items, and then getting into the smalls in the cabinet. Love the little bulldog bottle. Iowa City Arts and Antiques. Some great items in this booth, including him. So you've got this amazing folk art carving of a dachshund standing up, begging. Unfortunately, for $1,195, he's gonna stay here. Probably worth every penny, but the Doxy fundraiser will have to do without him. So in the deep dive with Katie, we covered Petroliana and oil cans. So we've come across those fairly regularly. What I had never come across, and what we did not talk about in the deep dive, is the kerosene container. So this is glass lined. It has a patent date of 1881. So we've gone a little bit older than what we talked about in the rest of the Petroliana, but just check out how cool this is. Looks like the glass is all completely intact. It's got this elaborate metal case over it that's all detailed. And then it still has the spout and the fill area still intact. 169 bucks. I have no idea if that's a good price or that might be all its money, but never seen one before, and that's pretty cool. So the huckster in me always loves these counter display advertisement pieces. And so this is an ever-ready battery display. They're fresh. Look for the date. And there's even a little drawer. I guess would have sold flashlights, or no, lamps. So it says needed new flashlight lamps. So I guess that's what would have sold lamps. The batteries, I guess, somehow sit into this. Not sure how that would be displayed. So this is saying is from the 1930s, and it has a Skelly sticker on it. So that must have been where this was displayed. But got a great ever-ready battery display, perfect for the burgeoning huckster. $4.95. Once again, a huckster item at play. Looks like it is a presentation of all of the pencil types and engraving options and fonts that this company had available. Now, it's way too large for a traveling salesman to be taking this around with him or her. So this was probably maybe in the factory or something to showcase in a sales room. But, you know, you organize it well, you can make a pretty interesting display just showing a bunch of pencils. So this is an item that I've seen before, but this is probably one of the most complete versions. So it kind of gives you some clues, you know, just looking at the outside, blue bore in, not an obvious reference unless you really know your brand names, but you might recognize from the shape. Kind of got a cool lid on the top that also has a bore, so we're tying this all together. And when you open it up, you see it's actually a container, and what it is it is a tobacco humidor. Now, what's unique about this, I've seen humidors all the time, but I usually see them as kind of a standalone, and this one has this little spring thingy that comes off, and what you end up having is actually a separate can that comes out. So it happens to be blue bore rough cut tobacco, so obviously these were designed to go together with the bore on the top. So the idea would be you'd empty this, you'd put this in there, empty it. When you're done, you take it out, put in a full one, and then you would just have a full tobacco container. You know, you just pop the lid off, and you got the full tobacco container going into it. So anything could slide in. I guess it's the right size. You could probably change brands, but you've got the little clip thing that then once you change it, just goes back in. I guess you'd have to do it before you opened it, because otherwise I would have just dumped all the tobacco onto the floor, but whatever. Just locks back into place. You got to put the little lid back on there, and you've got a little, self-contained tobacco humidor that's replaceable. And the etching and design is very cool. Now, price-wise, $135, probably all of its money, but I've not seen one like it, so it's pretty cool. So, as I mentioned, the whole impetus for going to Amana Colonies at all was at the behest of Iowa City Art and Antiques, who has a location at one of the antique malls, Smokehouse Square Antique Mall. So that was my first stop, and that was actually the location where I purchased the most merchandise, primarily for me. So I did visit when I walked in. It's a 2-level shop, quite a few vendors, probably, I should have paid attention, maybe at least 50, maybe more than that. So I did ask, saying, okay, I specifically wanted to find Iowa City Arts and Antiques, and the very helpful shop assistant walked me downstairs, put me right into the booth, and right out of the gate, I found my first purchase, which was a new wooden trencher that I wanted to purchase to replace a reproduction trencher that I'd had in my kitchen. This is the new one. It still holds the pewter collection of pewter measures that I have been collecting. Most of them are 19th century, a couple newer ones and a couple creamers have fit into this. But you can see it's kind of a shallow bowl. This one I like because the bottom is a little bit flatter than the one that I had. The other one was a reproduction, and the way it was made, they kind of tried to make it almost too rustic, and it had a very, very thin base. So anytime the pewter shifted, the entire thing would tip over and they'd go rolling out. So this one has a really nice flare on both ends. Admittedly, it's not as dark as the one that I am replacing, but this is legitimate. So I believe there are some oils and things that you can put onto wood to condition it, that I might try and find something to give it a little bit of a darker tone. So if anyone has any suggestions for that, I would be open to it, because wood is not really my forte. I've got my Tiger Oak Vertical Grand, but that, other than just wiped down with kind of an oil wax once a year, that's about all I do to it. So I'm not really sure the best way to show this off, but it looks great. I love my pewter collection in it, and that was definitely a fun pickup. And then not at that shop, I did pick it up at a later location, but on that same trip, I actually found another pewter measure. So I'm going to be adding that to the collection. I need to do a little bit better job trying to figure out how to age some of my pewter. This one I do believe is 19th century. However, it is still marked on the side that this is a half gill, and I am trying to get my half gills and quarter gills, because a full gill is a little big for the trencher. So anyway, this is the size. They're little measures. They're not tiny tankards. They're not creamers, because there's no spout. And actually, Iowa City Arts and Antiques is on the lookout. They have a couple of haystack versions of these, which I may be getting my hands on. They didn't have them at their booth, but hopefully I'll be able to add to my collection. And again, that's Iowa City Arts and Antiques. Follow them on Instagram. They've got a great feed if you like primitives, such as I do. What I also purchased on this trip, actually, I purchased some other items. I'm not showcasing everything, so now I'm actually thrown. I can't remember. Actually, I think this came from that shop as well. These will be going up for sale. I just thought they were kind of cool. According to the tag, these are railroad nails or railroad spikes. I have no idea what these are. So they do look like very heavy industrial nails / spikes, and each one of them has a number on the top. So I don't have like a full run. It's not like I have 1 to 20 or anything like that. They just all seem to be random. Most of these appear to be in the 50s and the 60s. I haven't laid them out to see if I've got any duplicates. I do have duplicates. I've got 2 66s. Some of them look newer than the others. So you got this 66. This looks like almost like a regular galvanized nail. It's got the little ridges at the top. So that one I think might be a little bit more modern. But then you get into like this one, just the font of the 55, that looks a little bit older. And just the way the spike or the nail itself was made, it appears to be a little bit older. I truly don't know what these were for. I just thought they were kind of cool. And to be 100% honest, they were at a price point that, because I was able to purchase the bundle, these are actually going to end up in the mystery boxes that I sell on my live sale on Thursday nights. So if you've never attended one of my live sales, I do them here on YouTube, 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And one of the most popular items I sell is a vintage mystery box that has a flat price plus the shipping. And depending on where it's being shipped, I can put a variety of weights of items in there. And these are relatively lightweight, so they're not going to add a lot of weight in case I am shipping at longer distances. And they're just kind of unique, different. That's what I like to throw into the boxes. People can use things like this in a vignette, who knows, or they can trade them amongst their friends for something else. You never know. So I did pick that up also from the Smokehouse Square Antiques. That of the items that I'm showing in the little haul video, that is actually all that I have from that store, but I did pick up some other items as well. One of the other stores that I purchased from was across the street. I went through the receipts and my notes, and unfortunately I cannot figure out the name of this store. So I'll put the name of the 4 stores that were on that little street. I'll put those in the description of this video so you have access to all of them. The one that was across the street from Smokehouse Square was a joined building, and one of them was more along the lines of a traditional, and I don't want to put this in a derogatory term, but a traditional jumbled antique shop where just the shelves were chock-a-block. You move one thing, 5 things fall over. It was completely jam-packed, and it was definitely something that you could spend a very long time going through all of these shelves, all the nooks and crannies, because the prices were very, very good. But I didn't have a lot of time because, as I mentioned, this was kind of a side trip. So I really just did a quick scan. But in one of the areas where I did the scan, I actually found another piece of my gold collection. So if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that I have a small collection, slightly growing. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to grow it into, but I have a collection of the Picard China gold collection, as well as Stouffer Fine Studios, Stouffer Fine China, Stouffer Studio collection. They were both Chicago decorators. They did not manufacture porcelain in and of themselves. They purchased porcelain, sometimes blanks from Europe, sometimes they're marked, sometimes they're not, but then they put this gold accent. So this is not the weeping gold. This one actually, you can see, has a distinct floral pattern, as is the case for the Picard and the Stouffer. Their artist kind of jumped between the two studios, so the designs and the talent and the quality is very high in both. This happens to be a Stouffer piece that is not marked in any other way. So this one is probably, I need to look up the marks. This is probably hovering somewhere around 1910. Is where a lot of these 1910s, 1920s is when these were done. Kind of the shape of a tulip bowl. Picard has a similar shaped bowl, lotus bowl. I don't know what this exact pattern nor what this exact floral pattern is. I'm still learning this. This is just one of those cases. I like it because it's a Chicago-based company. I think it's very distinctive. I have it intermixed with the glass flower frogs from the 30s. And I just think it accents it very nicely up against, it happens to be up against a burgundy wall. So I just like the looks of them. And I don't really come across them that often. I come across the creamers and the sugars and the salt and pepper shakers. I have no interest in those. These are going into my living room. But I find Picard more often than I find Stouffer. So when I do come across Stouffer, I do like to pick it up. And again, it was an absolutely fantastic price in that part of the shop. And so I definitely picked this up. The other half of the shop was completely my jam. It was a different store. And again, I will put the notes in the names in the notes of the video. It was much more almost museum level. Everything was very nicely framed out, not framed, but was very distinct. It was very gallery style setting. They actually had some decorated stoneware that it was very tempting, but not pieces that I want to purposely add, that I'm not currently adding to my collection. Just some beautiful pewter, some just mostly primitives laid out in beautiful displays, and the prices were fair. I'm not going to say they were good, but they certainly weren't bad. I mean, it was a retail antique shop. They knew what they had. This was not a Goodwill. This was not a jumble sale. This was a very finely curated collection, much along the lines of what Iowa City and Arts and Antiques does. There was a very curated collection that just didn't happen to fit my pocketbook or what I was looking to add to my collection at this time, but I will definitely go back because it was a fantastic store. And I wish I want to say the name was something like Renate Antiques, but I will again put the notes I'll put the names into the notes of the video so that you will have access to them. And I don't know if they're all on social media or not. Definitely I'll have the link for Iowa City Arts and Antiques, but if I can find the links to the others, I will include those as well. So those were a couple of the stops that I made in Amana Colonies. While those were the hauls from the antique shops there in Amana, it's a 4-hour drive from where I was to get home. I did travel through some other communities, and it was the weekend, so there were still some garage sales going on. And I did pop into a couple of them just because I could. So, and I actually found a couple items, and I will just say they are completely diametrically opposed to what I was able to find, because you just never know what you're going to find in a garage sale. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of kitsch. Well, let's drop the little. We're going to start with a lot of kitsch. We've got some homemade, crocheted, vintage Halloween goodness. It is a Witch Renews It cover. Who remembers these? Now, admittedly, we did not have the Renate cover. We had the toilet paper cover. Ours wasn't a witch. It was a little Barbie doll with a big dress. But the concept's all the same. She is a little hand crocheted with green ribbon. They found a little broom to go in her hand. They even made a little crocheted hat to go onto her fun little white hair. And I don't exactly know. She seems to actually be stuck on here. So I'm not 100% sure how she's attached. It looks like her body just kind of just slides over the Renate. I'm assuming it does come out, but I'm not forcing it because you have to have something in there for her to stand up. So I saw her. I had to have her. She will be going into one of my live sales. I just think she's hilarious. And just, I don't come across vintage Halloween much at all. This is probably borderline what would be true vintage, but this is probably 80s or 90s. There are definitely going to be people who see this and will remember this from their own childhoods and will want to recreate it for their kids. So this is just a fun little item that I picked up. And similarly, and this one was actually a little bit older than I would have thought. This is a little vintage ceramic ghost. Now, there were other pieces that were in this collection that I did not pick up because they had damage. And this one I just realized, this one does not have a date on it. The other ones did. This appears to have a signature, or at least initials. The other ones I believe said 65. And I would say that this is probably 60s, 70s. I remember making these in the 70s. My mother had a ceramic studio in our home, in our basement, and this was a very common, look. It was probably common all the way up into the 80s, but I do want to, I want to say the other pieces were in the 60s. Anyway, this is, probably getting a little bit more vintage than her, but again, we've got some vintage Halloween goodness, and I just don't come across vintage Halloween that often, so again, I wanted to pick that up. But on the completely other end of the spectrum, first of all, those will be going to a live sale, not because I don't want them, but I don't. But because I do think there will be other people who are more interested in giving them a fine home than I am. But what I did find is going to be staying in my home. It is a pair of ewers. Now, I picked these up. I will say first and foremost, I ended up picking these up. The deciding factor was price. So first of all, I do not come across this style of porcelain very often. This is very similar to the amphora porcelain that I currently have in my collection, which is all dating from around the 1890s to about 1910. There's a couple of different companies. Amphora specifically was part of the Stellmacher group. Alfred Stellmacher started before, then it moved into Edward Stellmacher. There are different variations of the companies. They're all very well marked because they didn't really start until the 1890s. These are not marked, but there's some numbers written into the bottom that make me believe these are, well, just from the appearance, I know that these are of the era. These are also going to be somewhat around the turn of the century. I just don't know specifically who made them, but this form is very common to RSTK. I've got a couple of those pieces. Ernst Wallace is a little bit later. Got a couple of those pieces. It has a geometric handle, which makes me believe this one's probably leaning more towards the teens to the 20s. This one still has a little bit of the curve in it, so it might make it a little bit earlier. But either way, they are amphora style pitchers, ewers that are relatively small that are going to fit very nicely into my collection. They'll fit into a much smaller space. They're in really good shape. They need to be cleaned up a little bit. And maybe if I clean them up, I'll see a little bit more of a mark. Sometimes they're actually stamped amphora as an impressed mark, and I don't see that on here. But it's so rare that I come across true amphora pieces. When I saw something that's going to fit the bill, I'm going to go ahead and pick it up. Now, this will end up possibly falling into my general philosophy. If at some point, as I start building that collection with marked pieces that are, have some level of provenance, these will probably get bumped first because they're not marked. There's less information about them. But again, I picked them up at such good prices that even if I want to be able to resell them today, I could sell them as is. There's nothing wrong with them, but as marked, I would still be able to get money out of these because there is definitely a market for such a thing. And they're just absolutely gorgeous. And I can't wait to put them on the shelves and add them to my collection. So that's all I really wanted to show. I did pick up quite a bit more, but some of it was just run-of-the-mill things, particularly the items from the garage sales. Fun items, mostly things that'll go into my live sales, and to be honest, several of them are bought specifically to go into my mystery boxes because I'm kind of at that point. I give away multiple mystery boxes in an evening, and each item has between 10 and 20 items in it. Or each box has between 10 and 20 items. So in some cases, I just have to buy when I find things at the right price point, specifically to go into the mystery box. So I won't bore you with the rest of those, but I just wanted to have a little short video, primarily to highlight Amana Colonies, because I have not been to Amana Colonies since I was a kid. Probably 10, maybe younger. I do vaguely remember, and I remember the Amana appliances being a much bigger deal than they were this time around. So I don't know if that's changed. I don't know if Amana appliances are still made in Amana, Iowa. I don't know. I also remember the Amish, almost like the Pennsylvania Dutch having a presence there that I didn't really see on this trip, but I was only there for a very short time, and I didn't really get to see a lot of that downtown area, so maybe there would have been a little bit more had I done that. But it is a cute little place, kind of like Shipshewana, Galena, Illinois, some of those little communities that are off the beaten path. Like, it was probably half an hour off the interstate, maybe a little bit less than that. So it was like you had to kind of target yourself to get there, but was worth, even though I wasn't there for a very long time, it was worth a visit, and I hope to be able to go back, see a little bit more of it, and check out what some of the antique stores have to offer. So thank you very much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you get a chance, give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, appreciate you subscribing. Comment, tell me what you liked, tell me if you've ever been to Amana, and why are they called the Amana Colonies. I don't know that part either. But I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate you putting your trust in Trusty Huckster, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Well, show me a sign if you're wishing me to stay. Otherwise, I say goodbye, finish out the day. And that sunrise in the morning and you got nothing to say. Oh, that's when I'll be headed on my way.